Next, I want to talk about some basic elements of surface water. So part of the hydrologic cycle is water that has fallen through precipitation collecting and making its way back out into the ocean on the surface through streams, which are like rivers, creeks, and so on. So in physical geography, we often, instead of calling things a river or a creek, we call all of these things stream. Any kind of natural flow of water that is confined within a channel. This is a figure from your book showing different major streams of California, including, for example, the San Joaquin River. There's different types of streams according to how much, how water flows. You can have perennial streams that flow year-round. The San Joaquin River is a good example of that. Sometimes levels are higher, sometimes lower, but it always has some type of flow of water. There are some that are intermittent streams. So there's a stream that flows through the city of Madera called the Fresno River, where part of the year it's running and part of the year it's dry. Usually that's because the seasons when snow is melting help to feed these rivers and allow them to flow during that time. But as the snow melt drops off, they will dry out. And then lastly, in desert areas, very dry areas, we have ephemeral streams. And these are just empty channels that will then collect rainwater when you have a storm event. So the perennial streams that run year-round, they develop into a network. So smaller perennial streams meet up and feed into larger perennial streams, which meet up into larger, et cetera, et cetera. So this creates a network of streams fed by smaller ones, usually higher in the mountains, that feed into larger and larger streams. So this might be smaller streams up in the Sierra Nevada, and this may be like the San Joaquin River here. And the collection or network of streams drains a certain area of land. And that area of land that's drained by that stream network is called a drainage basin, or more commonly called a watershed. So this is a network of smaller streams feeding into a larger one. And this is an area of land that is drained by that stream network. We can divide these up geographically. This is a map of major watersheds in the United States. And there's a number of them in California. So there's a hydrologic area of California in general. Then it's divided up into these smaller ones. If we look more closely, that includes things like the North Coast, Sacramento River, San Joaquin River, and Tulare Lake. Here's a bit closer view of the Central Valley ones. That includes the Sacramento River, San Francisco Bay watershed. This is the delta in between where water from the Sacramento River meets up with the San Joaquin River. This is the area that's drained by the San Joaquin River. And this one's called the Tulare Lake Basin. And this one's a little bit different, the Tulare Lake Basin. Historically, there was a large lake in about the middle of Kings County called Tulare Lake. This is about what it looked like around 1851. At one time, it was much bigger, encompassing this whole area here. And however, as we cut off the water supply to it through irrigation and also actively drained the river to reclaim it as cropland, that lake eventually disappeared. At one time, it was the largest freshwater lake in the western United States.